brought that up for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great point. So I want to dive into, our first segment. So we talk about, and I said this at the beginning, we talk about energy a lot as it pertains to movement for dancers, but it's more than that, right? Explain energy at the most basic level so that we can all get on the same page as we're discussing this today. We hear, oh, your energy just isn't good. Like, or what, what is energy? And when you talk about energy, what are you referring to?
Yeah, so I'm just going to preface this by saying I am in no way a physicist or, like all of the, like I am not a scientist. I have dreams of being that, and I read all these things and hope that I understand them. But I do my best to understand the scientific things that I digest. When we talk about energy, in its most basic sense, we are talking about what could be called life force.
Okay.
Right? Something that gives something a life. So plants emit energy. Humans obviously emit energy. When you get an EKG, and they're measuring the electrical currents of your heart, our organs are emitting energy. Even, if down to like the littlest components of what things are made of, like atoms, the molecular structures they have charge. You can have an electron, but like all of these things emit energy. So even this table that is seemingly solid is comprised of all of these things that are emitting charge, and it's actually sending out a vibration, right? Like this is the word vibe. Like, oh, this place has a good vibe. You're picking up on the vibration. Generally, things that are emitting a higher energy feels better for us than things that emit lower energy. So that's the kind of energy that we're talking about, is like, I mean, and you can talk about it in all different ways, but at its most basic form, it's like a life force that you're made up of.
So are energy and mood two different things, or is that kind of like the same thing? Because I hear you saying vibe, and when somebody's in a good mood, is that good energy? When somebody's in a bad mood, is that negative energy? Like, what are they the same? Or are they interchangeable?
They're not interchangeable. I think mood is sort of an output of an effect of energy.
Okay, right.
They can both affect each other. So if I'm in a bad mood, my energy is going to go down, right? But I would say that they're not interchangeable, because the work of like a Reiki practitioner or an acupuncturist or an integrated energy therapist, you're not necessarily just like working on mood. Right. You're kind of like getting deeper than that. Mood is sort of a symptom of what's happening on an energetic level.
Great. That's helpful. Thank you.
Like, is a mood, and you can tell me if I'm totally wrong, mood is kind of momentary, where the energy is ongoing. It's like it's a state, versus mood is something that is situational or
yes. And your energy can fluctuate too, but like you would have to use words to describe the fluctuation. Like the energy itself is always present.
Like, could you be in a foul mood? Like I wake up and I'm just in a foul mood, but my energy is still good.
Still good, yeah.
Is that a thing? You're like, no, Bree, no, not at all.
Probably not.
Okay, I'm just checking. Like, I just want to.
But the reason, so mood is sort of like how you're processing your emotions. Your energy can also affect your physical body too. Mood can as well. I mean, they're very similar, but they're different. Energy is more all encapsulating, where mood is sort of like one aspect of it.
Okay. I'm with you. On your page. You got it.
So you're an integrated energy practitioner, which I love. I just love that idea. What do you do exactly, and how does this apply to dancers?
So my integrated energy therapy mostly uses Reiki as a modality of healing. And Reiki is a hands-on modality that, like if you think of okay, so let me rewind. this concept of energy exists in many, many different cultures. So in Chinese, you have ki, which is qi. In Japanese, you have ki, ki, which is where Reiki comes from. In Ayurvedic medicine, you hear like prana. So all of this stuff is really well known in like Eastern modalities of healing. And if you're looking at ancient Chinese medicine, like which acupuncturists go off of, there are like meridians of the body, right? Which are sort of, it's like a roadmap of these channels of energy. And the idea is that if things are not flowing, right? If this energy is not flowing and it's getting stuck, it's going to cause harm. And that harm can either be in a foul mood, right? At its most minimum. And at the worst, it can cause things like severe illness,
right?
Whether that's physical or mental. And so what Reiki does then is Reiki helps to sort of clear those channels and get things moving again. Yeah.
So how, if somebody's like, okay, I want to hire you and I want to do Reiki, because I've heard this practice, especially with dancers, it's becoming more and more popular. What does that entail? What does Reiki entail?
Reiki is, it can be a different thing for different practitioners. It's sort of this really great tool that you can use in different ways. You can actually do Reiki remotely.
Is it really? Where you like put your hands over the body?
Like I could give you Reiki right now.
You
both
could.
of you.
Remotely?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
I know. Okay. So
I'm tempted to tell you to do it because I want to know how this works. Don't tempt me.
Let me also say I can after our call. I'd be more than happy to. But after, like, I know this sounds nutso. Like, I know this is logically, it sounds like how can this happen? And I just want to like,
no, Melissa, I want to interject because Melissa, you know, my dad is at home listening right now. My dad, who loves to heckle me on Beyond the Steps. My dad is out there, is Italian, 60-some-year-old man, and out here going, come on.
This sounds
of course.
nuts,
no, I totally,
yeah,
I totally get that because I am, okay, so Reiki, I should say, like, I grew up with a family of like Reiki and energy healers. So to me, it wasn't.
So it's normal. It's your normal.
It was normal. It was normal. Like, I didn't understand that this thing wasn't normal until I was like old enough where people started looking at me funny when I would be like, when I would say certain things. But I also have a very logical brain. Like, my brain likes to understand how things work. So I was always coming at this from like a standpoint of how does this work? I have seen it work. I have been the recipient of the benefits of it. I have seen this work on my family, but my brain has always been like, I don't quite understand how this computes, which is why I am so fascinated by physics and quantum physics. And I try so hard to understand because I think there is a science to this. And until I can like really crack the code, like I love talking about the science of this stuff because I think it can really bridge a lot of gaps. So I will give you kind of a book that is fantastic to read, maybe for your dad. It's called The Molecules of Emotion. It was written by neuroscientist Candace B. Pert. She also wrote a few other books. And in her work, she was trying to find a cure for addiction, actually. And so she was doing work on the cellular level. And for those of you that aren't familiar, I act like, and I am not a master on this topic by any means, but our cells have like little receptor sites. Every cell has a receptor. And so only the hormones that the cell is designed to accept will the cell accept. So it's kind of like a gate, like it's a key. There's a key and you have to have there's a keyhole. You have to have the right key to get into.
Right. Okay.
Our hormones, also called peptides, are these information systems, right? And they send information to the body from the brain or wherever the hormones are produced, and they send information to our cells, and our cells get the information, and then our bodies work. Like we breathe without having to try. It happens a lot with our nervous system, our automatic nervous system, our heartbeat, our blood pressure. And these are the things actually that Reiki has been scientifically shown to help. Things like that we don't have control over, like breathing, heart rate, blood pressure.
Got it.
So all of these hormones are being sent, these little messengers are being sent to our bodies, and the cells that are designed to receive them will receive them. Now, the crazy thing is that our cells are reproducing so quickly, right? Like I read something that said like every day you literally wake up a new person. Like scientifically, you wake up a new person because so many of your cells have regenerated. If you are in a situation where you are producing stress hormones over and over and over and over again, your cells that have the receptor for stress are going to reproduce and take up so much of your body.
Oh, girl, I'm in trouble.
I
am in trouble.
I know. So then, and then it just, and this is all in the book, Molecules of Motion. And then what happens is, because you are now made up of, on the cellular level, cells that are craving the stress hormone, you live your life and you are, you're not addicted, but you're prone to put yourself in situations and around people that will create more stress because your cells
I think you are describing me. I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
I seriously,
because I've often wondered, why am I here with these people?
Oh my, what?
They're stressing me out. Like, why did I choose to come here?
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, right? Like you chose it, but every part of your body is telling you that this is what you need. This is what your cells need. So it's like, it's this crazy thing. So when Reiki comes in, what Reiki can do, the idea is that, you know, the energy from the practitioner is going to help kind of clear out is going to nourish the cells that are receiving the more
this is
like
where
healthy
I get stuck.
hormones.
Yeah, but this is where I get stuck because, so you, the practitioner, I'm sure your energy is great, right? Like, I'm sure it's
great.
What
if someone's not?
Well, what if somebody's having a bad day?
How do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know that person is going to give you the good energy and not the bad juice?
Here's the actual, that's a great question. And the study that was done on Reiki and the autonomous nervous system had a person that wasn't a Reiki practitioner, that wasn't attuned. To become a Reiki practitioner, you go through training and you receive what's called an attunement. And so that was like a placebo group. And then the group had, with the Reiki practitioner, showed insane benefits, but so did the group with the placebo practitioner. Right? But not as much, but they still showed some benefits. So they're not even, no, because it's like the laying, and now this doesn't account for the remote stuff, but like the laying of hands on certain areas of your body.
So you actually make contact. It's not just like above the body. It's like
with Reiki, you make contact unless you're doing a remote session. But you make contact, and it can generate, like if you think about, if I just do this, it's going to generate blood flow to this part of my body, right? Like contact is so important for getting things to run in your body.
But practitioner, like licensed, is the key here. Like people who are attuned, like you said.
Yes.
And not just like, you don't go up and just be grabbing people all over the place and think
no. And I would say,
I'm touching people, talking about you're changing their energy.
And I would say
to be the cause.
No, and I would say too, I mean, just like anything else, like you wouldn't want to see a doctor that you didn't like, that you didn't get along with. The same with the Reiki practitioner. Like you don't want to be uncomfortable in somebody's office and like, wow, I really don't like this person and they're touching me everywhere. Like that's not a good situation for anybody. So it's important to feel comfortable with your practitioner for sure.
Okay.
Nicole Jordan says,
oh, go ahead.
Nicole Jordan saying, thank you for breaking it down. Now I've got some work to do.
Girl, you and me both. I'm going to need to book like a solid daily standing appointment for the next 6 months, Kristen. So
I got you. And the crazy thing is, so this distance Reiki thing, right? It's so hard to wrap your mind around, but there's this there was this thing done years and years and years ago, some experiment, and Einstein called it, quote, spooky action at a distance, where they were able to like pull apart a molecule and get two photons from the same atom. They like separated this molecule into two photons that originally had been joined, right? And they like separated them far enough where the laws of energy shouldn't have applied. So like there's a law of energy that states if there's an energy current, it can, and a conductor is close enough, it will affect that conductor, thus affecting the energy current of this thing, right? If you're close enough to somebody. So your concern, Bree, of like, what if someone has bad juju and they're like putting, is a valid one, because that can happen. Now,
okay.
These photons in this experiment had been removed far enough away from each other where this was no longer an issue. Like their proximity to each other should no longer have changed the ways that their electrical currents were going. However, because they used to be joined,
right,
and now they're separated, whatever happened to one, the other one did too.
Get out.
Like when they changed the electrical current and charge of the one photon, the other one automatically changed as well.
That is bananas. So
that is bananas. And that's what Einstein called spooky action.
Yeah, that is spooky action.
Spooky.
He's Einstein for a reason. I mean,
so the idea, right? The idea, if you look at that and you think of all matter having come from one source, and now we are all connected to each other, because at some point, like what we are made of, literally the elements of what we're made of, so is the galaxy and the universe. Like we are all made of the same things. Then suffice it to say that like logically, you keep going down that chain, we all can affect each other in incredible ways.
Right.
So that goes to like what we were talking about before we went live, actually, which is just that like be kind. You never know what the people are dealing with on the other side of the screen, or on on the other side of the phone. Just always try to give grace and be kind. Yes, it's a good lesson for us all. But so before we go on, because I want to move, obviously we target the show for our dance community and our dancers. We want to improve our dance spaces and make them happy and healthy and all the things. So I want to address, how we do that for them with energy. But before we do that, can you, dancers are injured a lot. We talk about that it's what led to us creating the Apollo socks. It's, you see people that are injured that are dealing with chronic pain. Never have I ever been more aware in my life of the amount of people dealing with chronic pain every single day, waking up in pain and just desperate to find a way. Does energy healing help the physical and the emotional side of things?
Yes.
You can help physical. So like for my dad, he had a fasciotomy in his leg, and he has stenosis in his back. Like he's dealing with some pretty major pain.
Yes.
Would something like this help somebody like him who's older and gone through a lot and their body's been traumatized? Like, would this help?
Yes, 100%. So
pain management.
Studies have shown that it obviously has relaxing effects on our autonomic nervous system, like our heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate. Studies have also shown that in cancer patients, Reiki as a supplemental treatment has lessened symptoms of the cancer. So less pain, less nausea from the chemo, things like that. It's a great, if you have any medical questions, of course, 100% see a doctor. But this is a great supplementary tool to help manage, especially with things like chronic pain. Because often the medical community it's something you have to manage, right? It's long-term, it cannot be cured, so to speak. Reiki is a great tool. Any energy therapy, acupuncture is a great tool.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah.
That's another Eastern medicine, right? Like in that culture.
And it's all connected, right? Like all of these these hormones that I was talking about that tell your body literally how to function, right? These hormones will allow you to lift a car up off of a child. If you're in a crazy situation, these hormones also speed up your heart rate or slow your heart rate down. These hormones are telling your immune system what to do. They're telling you all these systems in your body, but they're also explaining why we feel the things that we feel. Like they are, as the book says, the molecules of emotion. Like when we get nervous, we get sweat, like we have a physiological response. We get sweaty palms, like our bodies respond to our emotions. And when we feel nervous, there's generally thoughts that start occurring. So all of these things are connected. Like you can't treat one without treating them all and expect the benefit of, and I should say, and expect the same benefit that you would if you were treating all of everything.
Oh my gosh. I have so many questions that
I have an
I
off
could
tangent
literally, I have
question
to
that
stop
to take us
myself.
totally off.
I know. I'm gonna save it because there's one I really want to ask, but I'm gonna save it if we have time at the end.
Okay.
So moving on, for those just joining, hi, happy Friday.
They're like, who is this crazy
here chatting? Who are these people talking about energies? And I'm Bree with Apollo, Melissa McDaniel, Turning Point Dance Creations. This is Beyond the Steps, where we talk about topics that affect the dance community to create happier, healthier dance spaces for everybody. And we share perspectives. We're chatting today with the founder of Dance Send, Kristen Dice, co-founder of Dance Send. Kristen Dice, and we're talking about how energy impacts our everyday life. What is energy? What does it mean? We throw that term around a lot, but what does it mean as it applies to dancers? So I want to start this next segment. Let's talk about how we can actually make these changes in the dance community. So first and foremost, it starts in our dance spaces with our studio directors. How can our studio directors, our educators, our choreographers, what have you, work to create positive energy in their dance space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, you can come at this from a million and one different ways. And I think, especially with the work that Dance Send does, we're coming at it from like a mental wellness standpoint. So yeah. I would say first and foremost, it is so important to make people feel safe in their environment. If your dancers feel safe, and safety can be defined in many different ways. Do they feel emotionally safe? Do they feel physically safe? Do they feel mentally safe? Like some of the research that I was reading talked about, creating a dynamic in the classroom for learning that was conducive to learning, and students have to feel safe to do that. Obviously, one of the things I read was like the setup of the room is important. That you, like, as humans,
in what way?
Is that like feng shui? The energy has the flow?
Like, I guess so. I guess you could look at it that way. But like one of the questions was like, who has access to the exit, when, and why? Right. Like small things like that maybe you wouldn't have thought about before. Or like, when you stand in the room, is there clutter around the doors? Like, it's just things like that our bodies will unconsciously, because we're humans, right, and we're built to survive. We pick up things like that, and then we don't even realize how it affects us. And then we don't feel safe, right? We feel like we're in danger. So systems start shutting down. Our brains stop working as much as they would. We stop processing information that our body is telling us is not important, because if a tiger jumps in here right now, you're not going to be able to get out of the room. So right. And it's like little things like that. So I would say for dance directors, studio owners, choreographers, like safety, number one is most important. Make sure that the physical spaces are safe. Make sure that the when you walk into a room, when you start your rehearsal or your class, that you're inviting and welcoming the whole human, not just the dancer you expect these people to be.
Right. I love that, how you just said
ask
that.
questions like, how are you feeling today? How are you doing? Like, create a space where they feel safe. That is huge. And if you don't, here's the thing. If you don't know how to do that, ask them. Ask them, put out a suggestion box. What would make you feel safe here? You know, like I think teachers assume they're supposed to know everything because that's the gig, right? Like, well, I'm the teacher, I'm supposed to know. But sometimes you don't know, and that's okay. Does everyone feel safe in this room? And you don't have to tell me to my face. Write me a note. Tell me what's going on. I want you to learn and be the best you can be. So if you don't feel safe in any way, I would like to know so that I can address it.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we've already established that, you know, one person's energy can have an impact on another person's energy. I'm gonna now kind of tweak this question with something that's come up in my head. Let's talk about performance. Like, is that a thing in performance? When a dancer goes on stage, they're clearly emitting energy. Is that audience feeling that energy? Is there a way that you should prepare so that the audience feels the energy that you want to bring?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yes. You want to be, you know, I think often when we are watching a dancer and we're watching a performance and we say somebody has that it factor, that's what we're picking up on. Like they are shining out there. They're not always the best technician, but they catch your attention. They grab your eye because they are just emitting this joy, this bright light. They are vibrating at a high frequency.
But don't you feel like it's obvious when that's manufactured versus authentic?
I do. Yes, absolutely. So I don't think, you wouldn't have the same reaction to a manufactured thing. So it's so important for performers to find what works for you in preparation for performance. Like you can't phone it in. It's not going to work. And I say this fully knowing that sometimes that's the best you can do. And that's okay because we're human and that happens. But you need to have something in place. You need to find what works for you. Find what gets you in that space where you can be fully present. And that's the thing. It's like being present and living in the moment, whether that's a 5-minute meditation before you go on stage, whether that's 5 minutes of writing in a journal, whether that's your favorite playlist, whether that's, you know, time by yourself or you know that you need the energy of other people. Like everybody kind of generates their energy differently. Some people like to go be off on their own. Other people need the energy of other people to get going. So, and that's the work that every individual has to do, right? And as dance educators, we can experiment and we can say to our classes, our teams, our groups, like, what gets you ready for performance? Let's chat about it, because sometimes these students might not know.
Well, it's so funny that, so now as like a former director, I'm thinking about this in terms of like, before they go on stage, you know, we would used to do one big group warm up and like go through dances, and then everybody would go. Like, it may be more beneficial in some regards to like have that group moment, but then let them go off and do whatever it is that they need to do to be at their best level, you know, for what's coming next.
People need different things. And so giving space for those different things, I think, is important. But yeah, and then the other thing is, and I know this isn't always feasible, but you do want a group dynamic to be as positive as you can get it, because that sometimes, you know, as a performer, one of my favorite things was always feeding off of the energy of the audience. Sometimes you don't get that. Like there have been so many shows.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, those people, like, are they even alive out there?
Right.
Like, you feel it. You're like, oh, so you don't want to be out there just kind of like on your own. Like, at least you have each other. If you're in a solo performance, and that's a whole other thing, you really have to depend on your own energy. But when you're with a group, like it's all of you, you know, you're all in it together. And so it's important that to create a dynamic in your studio and in your rehearsal spaces where little microaggressions that students can have against each other are shut down immediately. And you can't obviously control what happens outside of the studio, but you know, it's good to talk about, this is a team effort, and there's like, we're working together as a team. And we're only as good as our weakest link. And if we're all coming down here because we all feel bad, then that's everybody's going to be affected by that.
think there's an element of this that also probably needs to be addressed in the competition world. That's just where I am right now, where my head is. We have gotten to a point where we are so overscheduled in this competition space that there's no time to prepare yourself for the stage. It's go get 2 numbers to get dressed. Okay, go get out there. No, moving around. Here we go. Oh, this is the third day. We finished at 10 p.m. Now we're starting at 7 a.m. Like, there is no space for prep. I mean, I remember that we used to come together, back in the olden days. We used to come together and do a group warm up in the morning and be able to come together before we went on stage and do an all hands in. And now it's like you just are gathering them up as they come upstairs from the dressing room. And the minute the last one gets there, you're pushing them out on stage. Yeah. I would love to see the competition space take that into account. Like, maybe we need some more room to have this moment with our dancers and
maybe on the flip side of that too. Well, yes, to what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I know plenty of studios that do this. Cut back on the amount of numbers that you're putting out and that you've got these children doing, because we know that dancers are far more overscheduled than they should be, and it's like so many hours of dance per the number of years old you are, right? Is like that's about how much time we should be putting in, right? And we know that we've got kids in 17, 18, 19 numbers, and that's avoidable for sure. That's avoidable.
Yeah. And in those situations, like if you find yourself in that situation, the best you can do is prepare with what you've got. So prepare that group dynamic as best you can in the studio before you get there. And then the dancers have to do what they personally need to do within a very short time span to get out there. Now, that's not ideal, and I hear you and I agree. But if that's those are the limitations you're working in, then that's what it looks like, unfortunately.
Let's talk about this parent dynamic really quick, Kristen. So we've seen the energy between parents and dancers in the dressing rooms. Teenagers come with their own energy. Good or bad.
Nice way to say it. That is a nice way to say
Teenagers come with their own energy. So how can parents protect and respect the energy of their children, especially during the tumultuous teen years? And should you redirect? I guess that's the other question. Like, if you have a team that's kind of on the, okay, she might need some Reiki. Do you redirect or do you let it develop?
Oh my God, this is such a big question. And to be quite honest, I don't know the right answer. And I'm a little bit like dreading when my son is a teenager, because I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna, I don't know. Here's what I do know. I do know that the best way to resolve anything is movement of some sort. So if we're talking in terms of energy specifically, stagnant energy is never a good thing. Never, 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 never. Now, this doesn't mean that, like, if I have this thing in here and it's, affecting my behavior and I'm a teenager and it's obvious that something is wrong, as a parent, I don't need this to come out and be resolved in the next 30 minutes, but any movement is better than no movement. So like anything, and it's kind of, I think it's a hard time because teenagers are grappling with who they are. They're trying to figure out who they want to be, who they should be. They feel all these things, that they're having like an identity crisis as a human being. And so anything that parents can do to sort of get something moving, ask questions, try to be, interested without having an expectation of what the result will be. Because you can't really control that, but what you can control is your actions, towards this individual. Same with dance educators, like just ask questions, like awesome. Keep asking, because eventually something will crack.
Eventually, and we know those of us who are around teenagers, eventually. Like Kelsey Nelson Lack on the show she was on, you said you have to ask 5 why questions before you actually get to the root of what it is. So you ask why, they answer, why is that? You got to do that 5 times before you get to the root.
Which is so interesting because if you think about like toddlers and their why phase, it's like we instinctively know this. It's like our brains work
but
way.
we've conditioned ourselves to think that at a certain age that should be turned off.
Of
like
course,
they should know better, right?
Right. Like we should all know. We should all know. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like people ask me, how are you feeling? I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Like
that
sometimes I don't know.
How long do you have for me?
Right, exactly. Sit down. Exactly. Take a seat. So Kristen, we like to give homework here. You know, you've been with us before. What is one action that you want our listeners to take between now and next week to make progress in this area? How do we improve our energy? Give us one good thing that we can do.
I will say this. Energy is contagious, which we know, like in physics, we know that from science, we know that from our own experiences as humans. When you don't feel good, when you are not vibing, so to speak, really question and start to make a list of who you have been around. I know this sounds cutthroat and I know this sounds a little bit rough, but life is too short to surround yourself with people that do not put you at your best state, that do not help you be the best person that you can be. And that can be really, really tough thing to come to terms with, but it's your life and it's your body. Like, this isn't even just about like, oh, I just want to feel good. It's like, it's your health is on the line, right? Like there's so much about you that is riding on these vibrations and these frequencies. And when you're really, really low, you've got to ask what got you there and who in your life is part of the problem, or what in your life is part of the problem. And just make an entry every day before you go to bed. When was I at my lowest today? Why? What was I doing? Who was I around? What situation was I in? And then you start to see a pattern. And you can take action on that or not. I mean, that's up to you, but I think so often people are stuck in a rut and they don't know how to get themselves out. And what I like about this assignment, so to speak, is that it gives you data. It gives your brain data and you can see it and make decisions based on information. When you don't have information, it feels all mucky and you just don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You don't know what the right choice is. Well, give yourself some information. And maybe it's not, it's not always like oh God, I feel this way after teaching this class all the time, so I got to quit, or this person it's not like the decision doesn't have to be that drastic.
It doesn't have to be so extreme, but at least you're identifying what is putting me here and how can I cope with this better.
Correct. And then the next step is, okay, so now what am I going to do about it? Which there's a bunch of solutions to that. But the first question is to pinpoint what's got you down. What's not raising you up, and then go from there.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. I like that assignment. We can do that, everybody, right?
Yep. Make a list. Make a list. Over time, make a list. Over the next week, make a list. Don't just do it one day, because somebody else could be having some negative energy that day. Let's keep it. Let's make a list. Let's get some research behind us on there. So Kristen has given us homework. We're going to give you some homework. The STEPS initiative is still out there. Bree is popping that into the chats right now for us. That is a free resource of training and modules that, we hope will get your energy up. Maybe those things will actually be able to, you see right on the nose, get your energy up. Make sure you take those. Another great organization that has amazing energy out here doing positive stuff to make sure our dance spaces are safe is YPAD. They have certification courses that you can take online. There is a code for 25% off. That code is Apollo25. Please visit the YPAD site, sign up for one of those courses, and use that code to get 25% off. Kristen, can you tell everyone how they can reach you?
Yeah, so if you are looking for mental wellness resources for your dancers, whether you are a dancer or a dance educator, please check out our resources. We have plenty. You can find us here on Instagram at Dance End Official. You can click the link in our bio to go to all the things that we offer. You can also go to our website at danceend.com. We actually have a summer lecture series coming up. There are 3 workshops over the next 6 weeks. They take place on Zoom. We talk about how to give effective and supportive feedback, how to prepare your dancer's mindset for competition, and how to help dancers cope with rejection and failure. So please join if you're interested. And and if you ever have a question, I'm a chatty Kathy. I could talk about all kinds of stuff all day long. Just shoot me an email at dancend@gmail.com.
Nice. I love it. And then you guys you're so great. You're so great. You're so easy to get a hold of, and you and Michelle do such an amazing job.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And likewise, I mean, thank you to the both of you for having us on to talk about Dance End stuff.
I'm sure you'll be back.
For having me back. Yeah, to talk about this.
We're going to need to do like an online Reiki demonstration, because we have 2 great candidates.
Yes, I would love to.
So everybody make sure you're following Dance End. Check out their mental health resources for dancers. They are so, so important, especially as we start planning for the new season. We start our summer training and whatever that entails. That is a great time to just go back to the drawing board, evaluate what is working, what is not for your dancers, and add some mental health awareness and exercises into your program. You will not regret it. It's just as important as the physical training. Trust us, we have heard enough experts come on time after time on this show and say that same thing, that it is a part of their toolkit and they have to be well equipped. So please check out Dance. They do great work. For next week, we are going to be back. We're talking about the 5 keys to injury risk management for dancers. And we're going to be chatting with Mandy Blackman and Emma Faulkner. And that'll be next Friday, May 20th, which how is that even?
I don't even know how
are we there? Like, where did May go? I don't know. But join us next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be right back here. Another great topic, another great question, and lots of perspective to share. Until then, you have your homework, and we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and Melissa, don't party too hard.
Try not to.
Enjoy. So
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Kristen.
Yeah.